Hey, it's John Nemo. Welcome back to another episode of Nemo Radio. I'm an idiot. Let's start with that. I just wasted the most valuable asset on earth, which is my one-on-one time. 40 minutes I will never get back. And it's my own fault. It's my own fault. But there's such an important business lesson in this. I knew I had to hit record here, coming out of my pain and beating myself up. And it's really all about one simple strategy when it comes to sales and lead generation and scaling a business and growing it. And that's really about qualifying leads. It's about not giving up your one-on-one time unless somebody is super qualified. And this is something where in this particular scenario, I tried to follow the blueprint that I'll lay out for you, and the person kind of slipped through the cracks. And then I ended up, because I don't have I don't want to say enough of a jerk in me. I'm not mean enough. I gave the person 40 minutes of time when I knew within the first 4 minutes, I got to get out of here, eject, pull the parachute. Like I should have, but that's part of the reason I try to set up so many barriers is I have a hard time being real blunt and abrupt with people because I was raised in the Midwest and you're supposed to be polite and all that. I need more of the East Coast blunt. Nah, you're not fit. Get out of here. But basically, I want to unpack a little bit about the lead generation process and then why it's so important to qualify leads, especially if you're a service provider similar to what I'm doing. And then I'll also kind of explain the strategy of how I'm trying to build leverage on these calls and what you can learn, what you can take away for your own sales process. So to back everything up, really understand context is everything. So how does a person find you? Where do they come into your world? How do they get into your funnel? All that good stuff. And so the first lesson here is really interesting. This person found me on a podcast I did almost 2 years ago. And that podcast is still bringing in leads. It's still bringing in clients because of the long tail power of podcasting. And this was a podcast I did that has a real kind of, it's a big show. I won't name it because I don't want to sit here and name drop and alienate people or say one thing or another, but it's been really interesting because I've done a lot of podcasts. I've done a lot of different things. You don't always know what's going to work out, and you really have to kind of just give your best guess to where do I think my ideal prospects are reading, listening, watching, learning, and then can I leverage that audience to get in front of them? So a great example of that, a painful, embarrassing thing for me, which I know you're here to hear, listen to me embarrass myself. One of my huge goals, one of the things I'm so proud of, and I have it framed in my office, is I got featured in the New York Times. Like, wow, for a kid growing up, in the 1970s and 1980s, right? The New York Times, it's still a big name, right? As a newspaper. Whoa, you've been, New York Times best-selling author, New York Times list, whatever. And so I got featured in it a couple of years ago for a story they were doing about LinkedIn. And a reporter for the New York Times actually found me through some blogging I was doing, guest blogging at the time, I think for Inc. magazine, which also the blog was like 4 or 5 years old, but it was just still on the internet and SEO. And they're like, yeah, I was reading your blog for Inc. magazine about LinkedIn and sharing and whatever. Do you want to do an interview? I'm like, oh my God, the New York Times, yes. And again, because I grew up as a kid, thinking in traditional media, right? Like TV, newspaper, radio, print, like that was it. That was such a big deal to me. And I was a journalist when I first started my career. I graduated with a degree in print journalism. I worked for the Arizona Republic newspaper, the Associated Press. So yeah, that's a big deal to me, the newspaper world. So anyway, so excited. Got featured in the New York Times on a Sunday at the front cover of the business section, big story on LinkedIn, and I'm in there, right? I was just waiting for the Brinks truck of cash to back up to my house. Like certainly getting featured for free in the New York Times is like the greatest public relations coup of all time for me. I got approximately one lead. One. And it's been 2 years. And I have the framed article on my wall, and that's the only validation and payoff I'm getting out of that. And I was crying about it recently to my business coach, and he's so good. He goes, well, yeah, your people aren't there. Like they're not reading the New York Times. Like that's not your audience, man. Whereas this podcast where this lead came from, it's aimed at small business owners. It's aimed at marketing executives, and it's very popular. And I did that, podcast a couple of years ago, and I did a real good job on it. And it's still the long-term value of that with, it's on YouTube and search and LinkedIn and, obviously the audio. There's so much power to a good podcast, long-term benefit of it. So that's phenomenal, right? And so this person came in, to get back to the whole story, they came in through that. I was a guest on someone's podcast. They watched or listened or whatever it was, both. They liked my approach. They liked my story. That got them intrigued. So then they went into my website, got some of my free materials. Then they reached out and they actually said, hey, I'm interested in having a call to talk about your services. So now old me, scarcity-minded me, I'll talk to anyone that shows a pulse. Me would have immediately jumped on the phone with the person, whether it was good or bad, right? Whether they were qualified or not knowing anything about them. And so new me has tried to set up these different areas to qualify leads. And kind of the approach I take that has worked really, really well is simply, step one is I want a potential client to go through content first, meaning the best thing I've ever found is if someone reads my book or even just an ebook on LinkedIn lead generation, that's the number one best type of client that is pre-qualified and ready to sign up. Because my business coach talks about all the time, he says it's, brand indoctrination, like indoctrinate them to not only your personal brand, but your business, how you do things, stories about you. And a great book, a great ebook, that's what I found works best. And I give away my books for free digitally, right? On LinkedIn, on my website. You can download the PDFs. They're free. I sell them on Amazon very cheap just because I want people to get the books. I run ads to sell the books on Amazon. Anyone that has read the book that gets on a call with me, it's a much easier sale. It's a much easier process. They already know, like, and trust me. They're already bought into the approach. They are a good fit because they like my personality. And that's the other key, is when you create this content, this book or ebook, you got to make it equal parts your story, your journey, authentic, transparent, vulnerable, real life you, photos of you, tales from the trenches, what you've been through, what you've learned. That's part of the book, half the book. And the other half is demonstrating expertise, giving them tips, helping them solve a problem, enabling them to get quick wins. And so that's what I've tried to do in my book, is A, give you my story and my personality, and I'm a goofball and all that, but B, here's how to generate leads on LinkedIn. Here's specific tips and templates and strategies that are easy to implement. So anyway, that's step one in the process. If they do that, I know that at least they're warmed up and I don't have to spend that hour-long phone call or whatever it is, Zoom call, telling them, oh, well, here's my story and here's how I got into business and here's what I think makes me unique and different and here's my approach to LinkedIn. They've read it all. They know it all, right? So that's the first big thing. And then the second part is, I try to have people fill out a type form before the call. So if they say, I want to talk to you, I say, that's great. Have you read my book yet? Or I also have put together some different videos that kind of walks through my process, and I've niched them because the riches are in the niches. So for example, if you're a franchise consultant and you say, yeah, I'm interested in your LinkedIn lead gen help, I say, that's great. I've actually got a short ebook I wrote just for franchise consultants on how you can use LinkedIn as a franchise consultant. And I have a video where I actually walk through my LinkedIn lead generation process using specific examples of franchise consultants I've worked with. So you can see, hey, here's what their profiles look like. Here's what their messaging looks like. Here's how I do their outreach. Here's how I, know their industry, right? And I do that for different niches: small business, franchise consultant, business coach, business consultant, whatever it might be, because then people can feel like, oh, cool, you've literally done it for people just like me. Now, this person also not a great fit because they came in from a random niche I don't have a lot of experience in. So I was like, well, I know what your niche is. I've worked with some people that are sort of semi-related to it. But this person, like anyone, was like, well, have you worked with people exactly like me on LinkedIn doing exactly what I want to do? And I'm like, no. Oh, okay. Well, then, I try to, it's not a deal breaker, but it's just like what I tried to say to the person is, listen, marketing to marketing. Like, it's not rocket science. Like, you have a service or a product you want to sell. You want to go get in front of people on LinkedIn, introduce yourself, and see if they want to buy it. Like, that's all marketing is, right? I don't care if it's a hairbrush or like, flying a rocket to Mars. Like, at the end of the day, you need to talk to other human beings one-on-one. Those human beings have to feel safe with you, connected to you, that they like you, that they know you, that you're a real person, that you're trustworthy, that they would enjoy spending time with you because you're going to be connected through this service. And then they have to feel like you're also an expert and you're really good at what you do, right? And so that's really all marketing is. And just understanding, as I told the person on the call, for 40 minutes I shouldn't have spent, like, well, tell me about your story, what makes you unique, different, better. Oh, okay, here's how I would approach people in your niche, here's what I would do, here's what stands out about you guys. And they're like, wow, that's great, and I'm like, yeah, I'm giving you all this free advice, what am I doing? And so basically that's the second step, is trying to qualify them with a type form. And so what I do is, step one, I really want you to read my book or watch the video. If you do that and you still want to talk to me, because that's the other piece, that first step is, I don't want to ever get on a call and they say, well, tell me what you do. How does it work? How do you help clients? You never want to do that. You want to say, oh, well, I actually wrote a whole book about it. Or here's a 5-minute video that will do far better job explaining and showing you what I do than me trying to stumble through it on a Zoom call. I would rather save you time, save you hassle, and not just listen to me blather on. So that's that first step of giving them some sort of content first. Step two is, you want to have that leverage and that authority where you say, well, listen, I want to make sure, and you frame it this way. Framing is so important. You say, I want to make sure that I don't waste your time on a call if I'm not the right person to help you. So if you can fill out this quick online form, prior to having a live call with me, I can give you an honest assessment of whether or not I'd be the right person to help you, or if it should be someone else. And then what you do is, once they fill out the form, and again, I've created this type form based off hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of sales calls that I failed at and what I learned from. And that's the other thing no one wants to talk about, is you have to fail so much to figure out what works, right? With anything, all the gurus don't promote that, but like, I've whiffed on so many sales calls, including the one today, but I always learn something, right? And I'm like, oh, okay, what do I need to learn from that? What can I change moving forward? So what I do with my type form is, I literally put in all the questions, all the qualifiers to make sure that this person is the ideal prospect for me. So for example, the big picture things, how urgent is it to you to solve this problem? How urgent is it to you, scale of 1 to 10, to start getting leads on LinkedIn? And then another big thing is their pain point. Why, where are you at right now with revenue? What's your goal? Why do you think you're not there yet? Right. And then they'll tell you, well, I don't know how to market, or somebody said staffing. I'm like, well, then you're not a lead for me. You want to staff up. You already have enough business. You know what I mean? Like, I told them, like, we don't need to talk. So you can hit these key things, like, how urgent is it? Where do you want to be? Why do you think you're not there? And then I get into, like, how much do you know about me? Have you ever heard of me? Now I've even added another layer of learning from failed calls. How do you view marketing? What's your mindset around marketing? Do you view it as an investment? Do you view it as an expense? Do you hate it? Do you feel like it needs to be instant gratification? Do you feel like, no, it's brand building and I'm playing the long game? Because again, I've learned over the years how to reverse engineer the mindset and the approach and the strategy of my best clients. And I want to try to identify that in prospects coming in. Because again, there's a truth that I've had to learn over and over and over, and I still have to learn, that my business coach taught me years ago, that I need it repeated daily. I need to, like, tape it on my forehead. But it's, you win or lose based on client selection. The quality of the clients you have is the quality of your life, right? Do you want to take on the client that interrupts your vacation and blows up your phone with texts and has unreasonable demands? Or do you want the client who's like, I trust you, you're the expert, this is an investment, I'm not panicking, do your thing, I got your back, what do you need from me? How can I help more as the client, right? So again, I try to put all that into the type form. So step one, content. Step two, type form. If those two look really good, then I'll do the call. And then, of course, I have a whole framework for the call to try to either get a yes or no on that 60-minute Zoom call. Now, what went wrong on today's session was the person never filled out the type form. And then, to my team's credit, because a team member was helping me filter this lead, the team member was like, hey, I was looking into this person, they want to book a call. It looks like they are not the decision maker at the company. Like, they have other partners or there's people above them. And so I was like, okay, I got to make sure before I get on this call, A, I get a type form filled out, and B, are all the decision makers going to be there? Which, by the way, I put in the type form. Are you the sole decision maker, or do we need other people? If so, who are they? So unfortunately, we're chasing this person. They're ghost. My team member's out of town. So I'm like, all right, I'll handle it, whatever. So 5 minutes before the call, I'm like, oh man, nothing came in. They haven't filled it out. And I feel guilty. So then I go get on the call anyway. Instead of stopping, messaging the person and saying, hey, because I had now personally messaged and emailed the person and said, hey, before we get on the call, I really need you, to make sure I can help you fill out a type form. And, it looks like you're not the decision maker. I say it in a nicer way, but rather than having you, again, framing it, rather than having you have to try to remember and disseminate everything and go back to the partners, is there a way we can get them on the call too, so that we can all be in one room and get all the questions answered and everything? So they never responded. And then I get on the call and I'm like, hey, and my plan getting on the call was I'm just going to cut this off in like 2 minutes. Right. So I get on the call. I'm like, oh, hey, nice to meet you, to the prospect. Did you get my messages? They're like, yeah, I responded. I'm like, oh, I didn't see that come in. And then I look as we're on the call. I'm like, oh, shoot, they wrote back a 1-sentence answer that I missed on LinkedIn. I hadn't seen the message. I'm like, oh, great. Okay, well, and I re-explain, like, well, there are other decision makers, right? And, oh, yeah. I'm like, well, are you? And then again, I'm like, again, because they didn't fill out a type form, I don't know. How urgent is this? How big of a pain point is it? Are you just in exploratory mode, or is this what my business coach calls a bleeding neck problem? Like, I'm bleeding out, man. I need a Band-Aid now. Like, we need leads today. I didn't have any of that. So then the call just went off the rails, because then the person, I didn't really ask, but they just launched into all their story and soliloquy and of what they're doing and what they're interested in and blah, blah, blah. And then they started asking me questions about trying to gauge if I'm qualified to help them. And so I tried to take the leverage of, well, hey, wait, trying to go through basically the type form questions instead. And we got through some of that. And then I really tried to take that leverage of, well, listen, this is true leverage that I have, because I work with every client one-on-one, and I personally work on, right now, that's how I have my agency structured. And there's a whole backstory of why I don't have a big team and why I do all the work personally, which I won't get into in this podcast. But just know this right now, as you listen to this, if you work with Nemo Media Group with done for you LinkedIn lead generation, you work with me. Like, I personally interview you. I personally do your strategy. I personally rewrite your LinkedIn profile. I personally create content for you, like an ebook. I personally write messages. As a result, right, I can only scale myself so far, and my pricing reflects the fact that you're getting me, the owner, the expert, the guru, doing the work, and you're not getting handed off to a team or a junior person or an overseas contractor. And everything I do is hyper custom. There's no generic templates, all that. So I explain all that to the person, and I say, listen, part of it is I don't take on everyone that wants to work with me for those reasons. And so I need to know, why would you be a good client? Right. And they say all that. And I'm like, and are you more interested in the done for you, or just learning, exploring, doing my online courses? Because those are very affordable, risk-free, money back guarantee. Like, that's a great way to pick my brain, for risk-free, $100 or whatever, right? You can get all the blueprints, templates, whatever. And the call went on and on and on, round and round. And basically then, we get to the end of it, and the person's just like, yeah, okay, well, yeah, I'm just exploring, and I'll take this back to the partners. I don't think they're going to want to move on anything. This sounds really expensive. They're going to have all these objections. And I'm like, exactly. That's why I wanted them on the call, right? Because they're going to, what inevitably happens if you don't have all the decision makers is, you go back to the decision makers. They're going to go, wait, you want to spend what? Who's this guy? Why would we trust him? Huh? Can we find it cheaper? I don't care about this person. I don't know him. I don't like him. I'm not invested into them. Forget it. Right. And that's what'll happen. I'll never hear from this person again. But I just felt like an idiot. So after 40 minutes, I'm feeling like, ugh, okay, see ya. But again, I wanted to share my failure with you so that you can learn and avoid this. And really the key takeaways are, pre-qualify your clients. Do it with content. Do it with an ebook or a really good kind of demo video that shows what you do, that, even splice in testimonials, demonstrate your expertise, tell your story. I love doing that through an ebook or a video, and then have them fill out a form. And if they're not willing to fill out the form and just try to show up for the call, that's a red flag right there. Because what you want to do is protect your number one asset, which I failed to do today, which is your time. Your one-on-one time is the most valuable thing you have. If you're the small business owner, if you're the coach, if you're the consultant, if you're the franchise consultant, if you're the whoever it is, you only have so much time in a day. And I'm running into this in my own business where I can only scale myself so far. Am I doing too many different jobs? What can I outsource? What's non-essential? What roles from Nemo Media Group should I fire myself from? Right. And I haven't fired myself yet from the sales chair, because I love sales. I love talking to people. I love doing it, but not at a scale where I talk to 30 people a day and 29 are unqualified and they're just curious. And the whole idea with the internet and with, on-demand content is the vision I have is like, hey, listen, you can pick my brain, you can see my secret sauce, you can get demos, you can get my whole backstory, you can learn what makes me unique, different, better. You can read testimonials. I have all that bottled up and packaged and polished through videos, ebooks, testimonial pages. Go look at all that first. Get yourself warmed up to me and my personalities and all of that. And then if you still want to talk more, then I need to know why I'd want to work with you. So fill out the type form and tell me more, because I'll give you an honest answer and I'll save us both time. If you're not a good fit, I'll tell you. I don't want to waste an hour of your time being like, yeah, I've never worked with someone like you. I don't think you're a good fit, blah, blah, blah. Like, why would I do that? Why would you want that? So anyway, decompress, Nemo. Okay. I'm going to go walk Rosie the dog and feel better. But I wanted to record this while it was fresh, while it was in my head, because I think it's a mistake everyone makes. I still make it, as evidenced, 12 years into running a business. And it's key. It's key. You got to qualify people. You got to protect your time. You got to not let feelings get in the way of, well, I want to be a nice person and I want to be helpful and I want to serve, which I do, but you got to be smart and say, well, I can serve a lot of different ways. I can serve through a free book. I can serve through a free video. I can serve through, a LinkedIn Live where I answer the question for a group of 100 people, right? There's all these different ways to do it. So there you go. I'm going to go out and, continue beating myself up, but I'll stop the podcast. Just kidding. I will go out and chill and relax. And Rosie the dog is waiting. So thanks so much for listening. Hope to see you soon on another episode.